Hello and welcome to another TLDR EU video. With Brexit negotiations appearing to hit a brick wall, we thought it was time to step back and look at EU negotiations past, present and future. Specifically taking a look at where negotiations have failed in the past, where they've succeeded and where they're still ongoing. While this series was only ever meant to cover 3 agreements, the call for us to continue has been substantial. So in this video we're going to take a look at one of the more complicated deals and agreements in place. That between the European Union and Switzerland, looking at how a country so geographically and politically linked to Europe has remained out of the European Union. If you're interested in deals and countries' relationships with the EU, you will have almost certainly been following the Brexit process. Well, so will we, with tons of videos over on the TLDR UK channel. So to commemorate the process we went through together, we made the most ridiculous product we could, BREXIT the colouring book. The book contains 15 beautifully designed drawings ready for you to colour. Alongside each, you'll find a summary of that moment in Brexit. On top of that, you get access to an exclusive TLDR video that runs through the whole Brexit timeline in video form. Also, because it's my 24th birthday on Friday, we're offering 24% off the book if you use code BDayBook. The link to the store can be found in the description below. First things first, as has become the default in this series, a bit of background. Switzerland's formal and direct relationship with the EU dates back to 1972, when a trade agreement between the two parties was signed with a specific intention to promote the expansion of reciprocal trade and harmonious development of economic relations, and thus to foster the advance of economic activity, the improvement of living and employment conditions, and increase productivity and financial stability. In other words, a pretty bog-standard free trade agreement focusing on the economics of the relationship. However, since then, the relationship has invariably become more political and more fraught. Having been a member of the European Free Trade Association since its founding in 1960, Switzerland was right at the heart of negotiations with the European Union when it came to developing a flight path for countries from EFTA to join the European Union fully and otherwise integrate further with them, leading to the creation of the European Economic Area, or EEA, which enlarged the European Union's single market to cover EFTA members. Well, not all of them. Switzerland did initially, on the 2nd of May 1992, sign up to the EEA agreement at a conference in Porto, Portugal, and less than 3 weeks later, officially applied to join the European Union, then known as the European Economic Community. So far, so good. Then, on the 6th of December 1992, a referendum was held to ratify the agreement. A referendum that would ultimately mark the start of numerous subsequent popular votes on European matters and policy in Switzerland. In the end, however, 50.3% of the Swiss electorate rejected the idea of signing the agreement and submitting a request to join the EU. As such, Switzerland suspended negotiations both with regard to the European Economic Area and the European Union as a wider organisation. Despite the referendum only very specifically blocking Switzerland from joining the European Economic Area, the vote was seen by many as a wider and deeper-rooted rejection of a then government policy and intention to join the European community. As the New York Times at the time reported, the popular vote was close, with 50.3% against and 49.7% in favour. Referendum rules also require approval by a majority of the country's cantons, and there the difference was far greater. 16 cantons voted no, 7 voted yes. There was an apparent risk that the rejection of integration into the European ideal would lead to a spiralling deterioration of Switzerland's relationship with Europe. At the time, the president of the Swiss Confederation said, "Switzerland has renounced the many political and economic opportunities opened up by the European Economic Area. It's also broken with its traditional policy of rapprochement with Europe." On one hand, it was argued that EEA membership would allow Switzerland to maintain its competitive edge and prevent Switzerland from becoming isolated on the European stage. On the other, it was argued that EEA membership would simply be the start of a gradual transfer of powers away from Switzerland's unique democracy position to a political bureaucracy in Brussels. The Swiss rejection of the EU in their referendum came after 2 other referendums on the ratification of the Maastricht Treaty, leading some to question the notion of European Union. The first referendum in Denmark narrowly rejected the treaty, 50.7% voting no, and 49.3% voting yes. And then France narrowly ratifying the treaty, 51% voting yes, 49% no, in a move later referred to as the French little yes. The French vote in particular startled European and French politicians and pollsters alike, who were confident that support for Maastricht was there. In June, some 3 months before the referendum in September, a poll showed support for Maastricht in the region of 76%. These three events in relatively quick succession, the Danish rejection, the French little yes, and the Swiss rejection, led to some questioning whether Europe was really ready for a deeper union. But this, nevertheless, didn't come to fruition. Following the referendum, negotiations were started on a series of bilateral agreements between the EU and Switzerland, focusing on key sectors and issues. The first agreements, known as Bilaterals 1, signed in 1999, covered 7 areas: the free movement of persons, technical trade barriers, public procurement, agriculture, air and land transport, as well as scientific research. 5 years later, a further set of agreements was signed in what was known as Bilaterals 2, covering Switzerland's participation in Schengen, the border-free zone, the principle for asylum applications, the taxation of savings, processed agricultural products, statistics, fraud, and participation in other EU programmes. Since then, more and more agreements have been entered into, ranging from a cooperation agreement with Europol in 2006 and a cooperation agreement with Eurojust in 2011, to competition cooperation in 2014 and defence cooperation in 2012. According to the European Commission, more than 100 bilateral agreements currently exist, managed through approximately 20 joint committees, allowing Switzerland to enjoy a relatively unique position with the European Union, in that Switzerland is a member of the EU single market and not much more, crucially lacking the legal obligation to adopt any of the EU's new legislation, while also being outside of its customs union, allowing it to craft its own deals with other countries. All in all, these deals have allowed the EU to become Switzerland's main trading partner, and Switzerland the EU's 4th largest trading partner. In 2019, goods imported to Switzerland from the EU totaled some €146.8 billion, and exports €110.3 billion. Then, on the services front, in 2018, service exports to Switzerland from the EU totaled €105.1 billion, with Swiss exports reaching €65.5 billion. Given this so-called partial integration, Switzerland is liable to pay member fees, specifically paying a financial contribution to economic and social cohesion in the new EU member states. However, Switzerland is at pains to stress that its relationship with the EU is key. On the official Swiss Confederation website, they state that from the outset, the European Union emerged as Switzerland's most important partner, not only on account of the geographical and cultural proximity, but also because of the EU's political and economic weight. All of Switzerland's neighbouring countries, except Liechtenstein, are EU members. Therefore, a constructive and close cooperation with the EU is essential to tackle common issues such as asylum, security, the environment, and cross-border transport. That is not to say that Switzerland is seeking to join the EU though. They're happy with their independence. In fact, in 2016, the Swiss Parliament formally withdrew its suspended application to join the European Union, with a European Parliament briefing highlighting the very same opposition that led to the rejection of the EEA all those years ago, saying that opponents of Switzerland's accession to the European Union have always believed that such a move would undermine the fundamental principles on which the Swiss political system is based, namely its neutrality and its system of direct democracy, and that it will carry with it the risk of a massive influx of foreign nationals. But things have changed since that original vote. In recent times, bumps in the road have also come to fruition. Since about 2014, the European Union and Switzerland have, with the aim of consolidating mutual market access and making it fit for the future, been negotiating an institutional framework agreement that would tidy up its existing agreements and, crucially, according to Euractiv, mean that Swiss rules would automatically adapt to fall in line with EU law. Negotiations have, however, stalled, with the Federal Council publicly requesting clarifications of disputed points, notably when it comes to the dispute settlement procedure. designed to resolve disputes between EU and Swiss law. And the very idea of Switzerland dynamically adopting EU law automatically, rather than by choice. The Swiss failure to ratify the deal has led to some anger from the EU, who last summer ended equivalence for Swiss stock exchanges, preventing Swiss shares from being traded on EU exchanges. A move deliberately intended to, in the words of Ed Conway, economics editor of Sky News, tighten the thumbscrews on Switzerland. What do you think though? Are these recent hiccups just temporary? Should Switzerland pursue EU membership in full? And crucially, what country or agreement should we cover next? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Then be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we post a video.